Does socialism work among the most devoted Christians? What do the Pilgrims teach us about the failed experiment of socialism? Here's the point. When the Pilgrims arrived at Plymouth Rock in 1620, they didn't just establish a new colony. They conducted America's first experiment with socialism, and it failed spectacularly. The story is documented with William Bradford's Of Plymouth Plantation, the first-hand account of the colony's second governor. The Pilgrims' financial backers mandated a communal property system. For 7 years, all land and profits would remain in common stock, no private property. Everyone worked the land collectively and shared equally in the harvest, regardless of contribution. Pure socialism implemented among the most religious and morally upstanding people imaginable. So how did it go? After all, these were the most disciplined, rigid, and religious people who were instrumental in founding America. The results were catastrophic. Crops failed, people starved. Half the colony died within the first year. Bradford wrote that the communal system bred confusion and discontent. Young men resented working to feed other men's families without payback. Women viewed the required communal labor as slavery. The most able workers saw it as an injustice, that they had received the same portion as those who contributed far less. Facing total extinction of the entire colony, Bradford made a radical change in 1623. He abolished communal property and assigned each family its own land. Families could keep the fruit of their own labor. Private property replaced collective ownership. The transformation was immediate. Bradford recorded, "This had very good success, for it made all hands very industrious, so as much more corn was planted than otherwise would have been. Suddenly, women and children went willingly into the field, the same women who had previously claimed weakness. Productivity soared, abundance replaced scarcity. The colony not only survived, it prospered, eventually celebrating the first Thanksgiving. God had given Pilgrims another reason to be thankful: the end of socialism." So how should Christians think about this? First, the socialist theory didn't work even among the most religiously disciplined and devout Pilgrims in a very small colony. The Pilgrims' example is devastating to the theory of socialism. Bradford wrote that the experiment tried sundry years, and that amongst the godly and sober man may well convince of the vanity and conceit of Plato's and other ancients. The idea that the taking away of property and bringing into a common wealth would make them happy and flourishing, as if they were wiser than God. Socialism doesn't fail because the wrong people try it. It fails because it contradicts God's design for human nature and economic life. People who believe it works, as Bradford put it, believe themselves wiser than God. Second, even as Christians, the grace of God does not completely overcome human nature. We are flawed and failed beings in need of constant help and forgiveness from the Lord. Even as Pilgrims were fleeing religious persecution in search of a better life, they too were not perfect. While grace does overcome sin, it does not overcome nature. If socialism could work anywhere, certainly it should have worked among Pilgrims. But why didn't it? Because fallen human nature is incapable of keeping and maintaining with the incentive structure of socialism. When effort doesn't translate to reward, productivity collapses. When the fruit of someone's labor is taken from them and given to someone else without merit, anger and resentment set in. Paul addressed this very issue in the early church when lazy Christians were preoccupied with Christ's second coming. They didn't look to the needs of their own household. Paul gave this command: "If anyone will not work, neither shall he eat." Third, private property and personal responsibility have been at work since Genesis 1 and 2. These are not the modern inventions of greedy capitalists and robber barons, but God's idea and design for human flourishing. We are stewards of what God has given. We have ownership and personal responsibility over our possessions. We have no right to steal or covet what is not ours. And just like the parable of the talents, God will hold us accountable individually for what he has entrusted to us. Bradford recognized that God's wisdom established another course fitter for them. There was a better system than socialism. That system included private property rights, personal responsibility, and hard work. The result was capitalism. Fourth, this history especially matters today. America has already tried socialism and it failed. When socialists today claim their system has never been tried properly, look to the Pilgrims. When progressives promise that socialism will produce total equality and material abundance, remember Bradford tried it among the most trustworthy people on the planet, and it nearly killed them. When you celebrate Thanksgiving, first give thanks to the Lord for all his blessings. Most importantly, the gospel of Jesus Christ and the grace to know and follow him. But also give thanks to the Lord for all his benefits. Thanksgiving is built on gratitude, not grievances or gripes. Socialism thrives on theft, envy, and covetousness, but destroys everything in its path. Thank God for private property, the fruit of our labor, and thank God for capitalism. This Thanksgiving, remember the scripture, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God.